Hi, my name is Andrew Boeckman, and I'm a senior geography major here at the University of Oregon. And this summer, I had the extreme privilege of receiving a SURF grant, and with that grant, I was a research assistant under the guidance of Dr. Yizhao on her project, Sustainable Galapagos, Integrating Conservation and Development Through Evidence-Based Policy Research and Knowledge Co-Production with Stakeholders. This research project was coupled with a study abroad trip that myself, Dr. Yang, and 11 other University of Oregon students went on to the Galapagos Islands for 3.5 weeks this summer. And the majority of the research and class content from this program was done on San Cristobal Island, which is one of the 3 inhabited islands in the Galapagos archipelago. This project only encapsulates about 3 months worth of research, and the whole project itself is about 1.5 years long. So this presentation will just cover most of the field research that we did and the conversations we had with people and some of the post-trip analysis of documents and data. This project is very unique because the Galapagos Islands, as many people know, are very important for their ecological and endemic history of species and biodiversity. But what many people don't know is that the urban growth development and lack of policy that governs the sustainable development regulations and the lack thereof is very significant. Of the few current policies that exist in the Galapagos Islands, many are top-down and outdated and are very conservation-focused development policies that date back to the 1950s, and they are unable to address the current rapid urbanization rates and agricultural intensification that occur on all 3 of the inhabited islands. So the main goal for our project was to respond to the urgent need and the lack of evidence-based and community-engaged policymaking in the Galapagos Islands, since historically many of the residents and stakeholders in the government and business owners haven't really had a say in how the lack of policy has affected them in terms of sustainability and the development of parks and schools and things like that. So in this project, we have 3 key methodologies that are very based off of the community and the community's needs. Our 3 methodologies for this project were collaborative research, student experiential learning, and a community education program. And through the collaborative research, we conducted many site observations. We had many conversations with community members, business owners, government officials, and the majority of this research included historical policy document and land cover imagery analysis to track and measure the trends between urban growth rates and these policies that are very sporadically produced between 1950 and current day. Next, through student experiential learning, this was the majority of the study abroad program, which included ethnographic and historical lectures from a professor from the University of San Francisco de Quito, Jaime Lopez, who was with us on the whole trip, and he was a pivotal resource in finding historical policy documents and the land cover imagery that we analyzed. And we also had lectures from employees and government organizations. And this also included a final project where all students created site proposals and presented different sustainable architecture and urban planning solutions to community members on the island of San Cristobal. And the 3rd key methodology is establishing a community education program. And the establishment of this program is going to take place mainly after December 2024 into the winter. And the goal for this program is to collaborate with Hacienda Tranquila to establish a community education program that increases education about the importance of sustainable development specific to San Cristobal Island. And Hacienda Tranquila is a large farm and ranch in the highlands of San Cristobal that provides educational experiences for students on the island to teach them about the importance of endemism and the biological significances of living on one of the Galapagos Islands. On our trip to the Galapagos Islands, we visited Hacienda Tranquila for a whole day and talked with the owners of the ranch, and they're very passionate and supportive of embracing sustainable alternatives to food production, water collection, and envisioning a sustainable future for San Cristobal Island. For the majority of this research project, I spent a lot of time after the trip analyzing historical policy documents and land cover imagery between the 1950s and the present day. And this was super important because this helped us see if different policies within different decades correlated to the rate of growth of the urban growth boundaries. And thanks to Professor Jaime Lopez from USFQ, he provided great land cover imagery that I geocoded in ArcGIS Pro and then traced the urban boundaries from different decades, such as 1959, 1972, 1982, 2007, and 2022. And we recognize that there definitely are gaps in data here, but it was very challenging to find geospatial data access for any of the Galapagos Islands just due to the lack of research that goes on in the islands. It was very interesting because there were documents from about every decade between 1959 and 2022, but all of the policy documents were very different. Some were written by explorers from the United States, some were written by the Ecuadorian government, and some were written like journal entries and articles. So they all didn't correlate very well, but within all the documents, we found that there were two that were really significant in how the urban growth boundary changed over time. And one of those was the founding of INGALA, which is the Instituto Nacional de Galapagos in 1979, which established and provided census and demographic data about the Galapagos Islands. But even with INGALA established after 1979, there were still gaps in the data. And the second really important document that was crucial to population growth and urban growth in San Cristobal was the Galapagos Special Regime Law, and that was the first plan that established a legal framework for human and ecological development and conservation, with the establishment of the Galapagos Marine Reserve, stricter immigration laws, stricter sustainable development practices, and more conservation protections on the island. And as you can see in the two maps on the slide, the urban growth boundary for 1959 is very small with the black outline, and that's laid over a satellite image of the urban growth boundary today, and then right below it is in 2022. So the urban growth boundary is starting to expand more into the highlands, which poses many threats to ecological biodiversity and the national park, which covers about 93% of San Cristobal Island. Then as you can see in the graphs on the right under visual data, shows that as the urban growth boundary increases, so does the population. And specifically, with the establishment of the Galapagos Special Regime Law in 1998, near the year 2000 is when a lot of these strict immigration laws and laws that protect the Marine Reserve and the National Park, which leads to a slower increase of the urban growth boundary and the population. Even though the population of the island and the urban growth boundaries aren't growing as fast as they used to, tourism is still very prevalent on the island and drives lots of the economic activity for both the residents and tourists on the island. So in order for us to better understand the socioeconomic impacts that these policies have on the local population, many of our conversations included informal interviews with restaurant owners, food vendors, and we asked them questions like how much they rely on food from the mainland, how much food is grown on the island that they end up selling, and many people, especially families, sell fruit and vegetables that they grow on the island to their neighbors and not really to the tourist populations. So we found many different answers on how tourism and just the local economy benefit or not their own businesses. Since this is still an ongoing project, we don't have very direct research findings, but from our observations of the 3 weeks in the Galapagos this summer, we found that there is a huge lack of policy in the Galapagos Islands in which urban development and environmental conservation coexist with each other. The enactment of INGALA in 1979 and the Galapagos Special Regime Law in 1998 definitely played a part in this, but right now one of the most important policies that the island archipelago is focusing on is the Galapagos 2030 plan, which highlights the goals for development, conservation, tourism, immigration, education, and natural resource use, and overall sustainability. So that poses a very bright future for the islands. And through our interactions with local residents and business owners who very much rely on tourism to create a living, we found that foods like rice, plantains, tomatoes, and beef are the most important foods for locals and the tourist populations, but most of these foods are imported from the mainland. So if the islands didn't have the support from the mainland, it would be very hard to sustain life for anybody on the Galapagos Islands. There are still many more exciting things to come out of this project, such as the community education program that is currently in the works with Dr. Yang and other professors from USFQ. And within the realm of the community education program, we're working with many other international precedents of urban planning to incorporate a more sustainable future of development on San Cristobal Island, where the local farmers, families, and residents of the island put in their input and what they want the most out of the future of San Cristobal. During the winter term this year, I will continue to work on this project with Dr. Yang, and I'm very excited to implement this community education program and brainstorm different ideas and still work with many of the professors and people that we worked with this summer. I would like to give a huge thank you to Dr. Yizhao for letting me participate on her project. I had a great time in the Galapagos, and I learned so much, and I'm still excited to work with her coming up in the winter. And I'd also like to thank the UO Center for Undergraduate Research and Engagement. I'm very grateful for this grant. And I'd also like to thank the University of San Francisco de Quito, who hosted us in the Galapagos Islands and provided the awesome lectures and educational experiences for us while we were away. Thank you so much for listening.